So my name is Rixa. I am a DACA recipient. I was brought to the States when I was 18 months old from Guadalajara, Jalisco. I was brought here when I was really young, raised American my whole life. For the majority of my childhood, I did not know I was undocumented. I was a senior in high school who is currently active in 3 sports, year-round with a job on the weekends where I'd work 10-hour shifts both Saturday and Sundays. During the time, I was also juggling a full class schedule with AP courses, so you could believe that I was a very busy person. Now, both of my parents are undocumented, and so am I. We came here because we lived in a cockroach-infested home where we would have to sleep under cover so that they wouldn't fall on us, where both of my parents worked full-time jobs and still couldn't afford our meals. And so they traveled here to give me that better opportunity. So I get the call from my mom, and I knew immediately from her tone of voice that it was having to do with my dad. And now the first thing I told her was, we're not moving, and we're not leaving. We can't. I have too much. I was a 4.0 student. I was a National Honor Society. I was triple sporting at the time, and with a job on the weekends. I was doing everything I could to try to get that college scholarship and try to get to my next step. But as soon as I got that call, I didn't know if that was so promised. I told her, we're not going anywhere. What happened? Your dad got in an accident and they arrested him. They didn't take him to the hospital. They didn't ask him about his injuries. They arrested him. As soon as we knew that they'd run his fingerprints, we knew that he was going to be under ICE detention. We didn't have any family here. We were on our own. The only people I have are my 4 siblings and my mom and dad. My mom and I immediately start discussing what our game plan is. What's gonna happen to him, what's gonna happen to us. My dad was the sole provider of our home. My mom worked, but she worked for the school expenses, for the car payment, to take us out to dinner, to buy us the food. My dad paid the rent, my dad paid the utilities, my dad paid everything. So without him, we lost everything. We didn't know if we would have a home the next month. We didn't know if we were gonna make it to the next step because we didn't know if we were even gonna be here. And so, move forward, you have the separation. Now, I was only able to see my dad one last time, and it was when we went to go to court where he would get sentenced to get deported back to Honduras where he was from. This was a welder that woke up at 4 a.m. every day, came back home at 9, tired and exhausted, just to make sure he fed his family. Who, although he couldn't dedicate the time to be there for me during my sports, he dedicated enough to know that he knew he had a family to provide and to take care of. He was an honest man. He was funny. My dad was so funny. And the last time that I ever got to see my dad in person was in an orange jumpsuit, like a criminal. And I remember the feeling of my heart dropping and knowing that I was never gonna be able to give my dad one last hug. And knowing that he was gonna go back to a country where his own family members had been murdered by the cartel. Where he was gonna go back and experience everything he ran away from to begin with. I was finally able to communicate with my dad when he got back to Honduras. And the first thing he told me was that within that first month of him being there, he'd seen just one of his neighbors get shot in front of their own home. Where the first week of him being back there, all his belongings had been stolen from him. He had been reunited with a family he hadn't known in 30 years. After my dad had been deported, we were now placed in a new position where my mom was now the head of the household and I had to step up to a position that I wasn't ready for. I was a full-time student with a full-time extracurriculars, and I wasn't prepared to have to step up to a secondary parental role where it required me to put in extra hours and extra emotional effort to keep my family strong. After my dad had been deported, my mother went into a deep depression. I saw my mom completely lose hope in herself and then the ability to take care of her family. I had 4 younger siblings, 5 children altogether, for one mother who had never, you could never prepare for such a loss. Every day, we are constantly fighting the anguish of what's gonna happen next. I'm 21 years old, and I have to debate, what am I gonna do if my mom gets pulled over for a traffic stop? Because that's how easy it is. It's a traffic stop. And knowing my mother could get potentially deported, and then I, at that point, at 21 years old, have to decide, what am I gonna do about my 4 younger siblings who have nobody else in this country aside from just me. And to make that choice, that's not something we should have ever had to live with. And although I cry every single time, and how painful it is every time to tell this story, because it just brings it all back, it's so important to bring back the humanity to my dad, to Wilmer Donaire. He deserves his justice, and he never deserved to have been separated from a family and from a country that he had so dedicated himself to. And my dad did everything he could for the best of his family, just like any other person would. And so I came here especially to share my story and to share that it's not easy. I have an 11-year-old little sister who still to this day will cry in the middle of class because she misses her dad and she never got to say bye to him. That the last conversation that we had with our dad was that he had a broken foot because he got ran over with a motorcycle, and we have no way to help him. We have no way to ensure that he's gonna be safe. We have no way to know if he's gonna be okay. I, right now, have not been able to talk to my dad for at least a month, and I don't know if he's alive. That's the kind of question you have to put on yourself, is you don't know if he's alive. I don't know if my dad's okay. This is something we have to live with every day. And it's every day that I have to think about, what is my next plan? What am I gonna do if this happens? Thank you all for being here. I really, really appreciate it. I hope you all move forward and share the story and share the stories that you heard, because it's important for us to continue sharing this message. These are people, these are family, these are your neighbors, these are your doctors. I'm in your community and you didn't know. How many others? There's thousands of others in this community, probably even sitting next to you, that you might not be aware of. They're all around you. And we need to realize that. So thank you all.